How clothes got fast. To understand why that warehouse burned, we need to go back, before the bales, before the bins, when fashion still moved at the pace of weather. Autumn coats, spring dresses, a handful of collections. Designers set the rhythm and factories followed it. Then speed slipped in quietly. In the 1990s, Spanish and American retailers started compressing months into weeks. Shorter lead times meant fresh racks more often. When quotas on global textiles wound down in the 2000s, the door swung wide. Production shifted to wherever labor was cheapest and oversight thinnest. Meanwhile, logistics got faster, flights got cheaper, and the internet taught shoppers to expect new always. Here's where the math changed. Instead of forecasting seasons, brands began forecasting clicks. Real-time sales data sliced into days, into hours. A style landed in a store, the register told them if it breathed. If it didn't, it disappeared. That feedback loop rewired the whole system. Small test runs, fast reorders, weekly drops. New became a strategy, not a schedule. While that was happening in New York and Madrid, something else was taking shape in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. Factories reorganized around just-in-time sewing lines. Fabric mills aligned with midnight dye runs. Spinning, knitting, cutting, all tuned to hit sudden surges. Phones lit up at 2 a.m. with revised print placements. Workers hit quotas that crept higher at the end of every month. Then the algorithm arrived. Brands scraped search trends, Instagram grids, the comments under celebrity posts. Designers became interpreters of dashboards. The winner wasn't the most creative, it was the fastest to translate a spike into a SKU. Microtrends were born micro because they weren't meant to last. Hair clipped green on Tuesday, mushroom brown by Thursday. The mall couldn't compete with that cadence. Shelves standing still looked old. The model metastasized online. The storefront became an app. Notifications nudged midnight scrolling into impulse buys. Returns got easier, free labels, instant refunds, so the home turned into the fitting room and supply chains learned to absorb boomerangs. Warehouses sprouted secondary aisles labeled restock and liquidate. The loop tightened. From the shopper's side, the story felt like democratization. More styles, lower prices, next-day shipping. From the supplier's side, the story was pressure. Prices shaved at every stage. Grams per square meter pulled down, stitch density pared back, seconds tolerated because a ring light could disguise a raw edge. When you buy 2 sizes and return one, someone downstream pays for both. Meanwhile, quantities exploded. If Zara normalized weekly collections, ultra-fast platforms pushed daily, then hourly drops. Thousands of new listings appeared each day, most tested in tiny batches. The algorithm promoted the winners. The losers were quietly marked down, then bundled, then exported by the bale. Unsold became normal, priced into the plan. What nobody knew at the time was how data would start dictating the cut itself. Heat maps from returns taught brands where seams failed. Instead of reinforcing stress points, some suppliers simply shifted to cheaper blends that disguised pilling for the first few wears. A shirt that felt soft on day 1 cost less to produce and invited a replacement by day 10. Parallel to the acceleration came a new kind of finance. Buy now, pay later tucked itself under checkout, turning a $28 cart into 4 easy payments. That wasn't an accident. Easy credit lifts conversion, props up volume, and fuels hauls. A dress that lasts 7 wears looks affordable when it's divided across 4 taps. The debt sits in the background, humming. 3 days earlier, something else occurred. Returns hit a threshold where brands quietly stopped repairing and started routing. It's expensive to inspect a $9 tee, harder still to rebag it for resale. Many items never go back online. Some trickle to off-price outlets. The rest join the river of second-hand, sorted, baled, shipped, until it lands in markets already stretched thin or in a warehouse hoping for a miracle buyer. Here's the kicker. The system doesn't just respond to demand, it manufactures it. Infinite scroll trains us on novelty frequency, not satisfaction. Each microtrend chips away at the value of last week's purchase. Outfit posts teach us to fear repeat wear in the same feed. Add to that constant price anchoring, $4 tops, $5 tees, and reasonable gets recalibrated downward. Quality standards follow. So the fire we opened on, it wasn't an accident of one bad sort. It was the backdraft of a model built on speed, abundance, and disposability. The faster fashion got, the more it depended on frictionless exits, easier returns, quicker liquidation, and somewhere for the overflow to go. When those exits clog by volume, by weather, by policy, stockpiles ignite, literally and economically. This was the moment everything changed. when speed stopped being a competitive advantage and became the business itself. The math that made clothes cheap relied on shaving costs, shortening lifespans, and outsourcing the mess. And it worked until the waste loop closed in on us. Now, to see the real price, follow the lies the model hides in plain sight. Lie 1. The price tag lie. To see the first lie, hold a $5 tee in your hand and ask where the dollars went. Start with the fabric. A typical ultralight knit might weigh 120 to 140 grams per square meter, thinner than what your high school gym shirt used to be. At massive volumes, polyester yarn can cost cents per yard. Cotton costs more, so blends creep in. That's the first quiet cut. Fiber swaps that feel soft on day 1 and collapse by wash 7. Now labor. In many supplier hubs, sewing wages hover far below a living wage. A single tee can pass through 6 to 10 pairs of hands, cutting, hemming, attaching neck tape, closing shoulder seams, adding labels, pressing, bagging. The labor slice on a $5 tee, often well under $1. The clock does the rest. Faster lines, higher quotas, less time per stitch. Missed bar tacks, skipped backstitches, savings you won't see until a seam lets go. Logistics is the next shave. When you ship by sea, pennies per unit vanish nicely into scale. Air is expensive, but for microtrend hits, air happens. The trick is to spread costs across mountains of misses. That's where the lie lives. The price that hooked you is subsidized by everything that never made it to your cart. Overstock is baked into the model, and the losses are offloaded down the chain, liquidators, charities, municipal budget. Margin, it's not where you think. Fast platforms squeeze suppliers so hard that the brand's gross margin can look healthy even if individual items fail. The offset comes from the speed of turnover and the flood of choice. The real product isn't the shirt, it's your behavior. When checkout friction drops and novelty rises, the basket swells. A $5 tee rides alongside a $12 dress and a $6 belt, and suddenly the average order value makes sense. Marketing is the cheapest part because you're doing it. User photos, haul videos, affiliate links, crowdsourced promotions stitched into your feed. The incentive structure pushes volume, discount codes, free shipping thresholds, time-limited drops. You chase the bargain, the brand harvests the data. Every click refines the next batch, steering fabric, color, and cut. Your scroll is a focus group they don't have to pay for. But the price tag lie isn't just accounting, it's design. Shrinkflation in clothing looks like fewer stitches per inch, narrower seam allowances, lighter ribbing at the collar. It looks like necklines that bag out, threads that fuzz early, prints that crack by the third wash. Those are deliberate trade-offs. Lower grams per square meter means a cheaper tee, and a cheaper tee means you'll replace it sooner. Replacement is revenue. Then there's financing the cheap. Buy now, pay later wedges itself between your intention and the consequence. 4 payments dull the signal that something costs money. It isn't free credit for you, it's guaranteed conversion for them. Returns policy sweetens it further. You're told to order 2 sizes and keep 1. The returned item might be steamed and rebagged if it's pristine, and if it's worth the labor to check. Often it is. Someone still paid for the round trip. It wasn't the price tag. Now zoom out to the hidden tabs that never show up at checkout. Dyehouse effluent that a town must treat. Microfibers shed in washing machines and caught by no one. Landfills managing methane from decomposing blends that were never meant to separate. Those costs drift to taxpayers, to health systems, to rivers. The tea's true price inflates after it leaves your drawer. Meanwhile, the donation's detour hides another bill. When you give it a second life, the bale you fed is graded, repacked, shipped, taxed, and sorted again. Many markets are drowning in low-quality imports. Sellers pay for bales with unpredictable ratios of usable garments to waste. When the math breaks, the overflow burns or mounds. Those disposal costs aren't on your receipt. They're in the open dump a continent away. Here's a human moment. A factory accountant toggles a spreadsheet at midnight. The row he's adjusting is collar rib, dropping width by 1 millimeter to save a fraction of a cent per unit. The order is 300,000 units. He hits enter. The savings equal a month's payroll for the finishing floor. The collars will ripple after 2 washes. No one upstream will see the ripple, except you. What nobody tells you is that low sticker prices are a transfer, not a miracle. You're not paying less, someone else is carrying the bill. A worker absorbing unpaid overtime. A village downstream of a dye house. A city handling textile waste. Your future self buying the same tee again because the first one thinned out like tissue. The $5 tee was never $5. It was a down payment on a cycle. The tag pulled you in, the quality keeps you coming back. That's the trap. And once it's set, the next lie starts to sound reasonable. Maybe it's not meant to last. Lie 2. The quality collapse. Here, S where the second lie shows up. Not as a rip in month 12, but as a quiet failure in week 3. Quality didn't just drift, it was engineered downward to fit the speed. The blueprint starts in the fiber room. Blends look sensible on paper, polycotton for softness and wrinkle resistance, elastane for stretch. But when the elastane percentage creeps just high enough to feel snug on try-on, it also creeps into a zone where heat and detergent break the yarn memory fast. That snap you love on day 1 becomes baggy knees, a wavy collar, a sagging cuff. Designed obsolescence in apparel doesn't need a timer, it needs friction points placed carefully. Fewer stitches per inch so the seam looks fine, but the thread has more space to move and abrade. Narrow seam allowances so there's no extra cloth to hold repairs. Lower twist yarn that feels plush at first touch and pills under armpits after 2 commutes. The shirt did fail, it fulfilled its brief. Look good under ring light, survive a handful of wears, invite a replacement. What nobody sees at checkout is how microtrends set expiry dates. When the algorithm pushes a neckline depth and hem length for 9 days, the cut is already old on day 10. Quality is recalibrated to that lifespan. Why reinforce the pocket when the silhouette won't be in rotation by month 2? Why use a cover stitch that locks when a single needle hem will pass on camera? The closet becomes a staging area, not a wardrobe. There's math behind the wash-to-death curve. Mills test abrasion with Martindale rubs and pilling boxes. Buyers read the numbers and set tolerance levels aligned with the trend calendar. If the garment passes 5-10 domestic wash cycles before visible degradation, it's fit for purpose in a micro-trend world. That purpose is short. A hoodie that survives 50 cycles is overbuilt, unless the business wants you to stop scrolling. Repair is the missing verb on purpose. Patterns are tight to save fabric, leaving no extra at the hem to let out, no facing to catch a proper mend. Spare buttons? Rare. Color-matched thread not included. Even the way collars are fused discourages fixes. Cheaper interlinings delaminate with heat, so pressing a repair can bubble the placket. Tailors can rescue almost anything, but the hour they need costs more than the garment did new. The system counts on that equation. Meanwhile, the failure starts earlier than your laundry room. In spinning, cost pressure pushes toward shorter staple cotton mixed with synthetics to stabilize yarn. Shorter fibers slip from the weave, becoming the fuzz that pills and the microfibers that wash away. In knitting, gauges are open to reduce grams per square meter. In dyeing, time on shade and fixation is shaved to meet a ship date, leaving excess dye to bleed in your first wash and to weaken fibers faster. Here's a micro story. A supervisor on the sewing floor is told to hit 48 pieces per hour on a top with 2 rows of top stitching and a curved hem. She drops the stitch length to speed the feed. It looks cleaner, faster, tighter, but shorter stitches perforate the fabric like a ticket stub. The hem starts tunneling after 1 tumble dry. The customer calls it cheap. The brand calls it trend turnover. Footwear plays the same game. Foam midsoles tuned for bounce feel incredible in the store, then packed down quickly. Adhesives that cure fast can shear under heat. Insoles glued, not stitched, lift at the heel edge, inviting blisters by run 5. You won't return them if the price was low. You'll put them by the door, forget, and reorder. What about care labels that say hand wash only? Sometimes that's about delicate trims. Often it's a liability shield. The garment wasn't built to endure the spin speeds most modern machines default to. Lower torque stitching, cheaper elastane, unstable dyes. Hand washing becomes a workaround for corners cut upstream. You're not caring for a precious textile, you're financing a workaround. Quality collapse feeds the haul economy. If the unit promise is cute tonight, then the failure tomorrow is a feature, not a bug. The dopamine hit ties to newness, not ownership. And the platforms learn to chase the postwear moment. Returns windows long enough to wear once, photo, and tag intact. Affiliate links rewarding volume, not longevity. Everything nudges you toward the next add to cart because the last item was designed to be forgettable. Still, there's a tell you can train your hands to find. Pull at a side seam. Does it ladder when stretched? Look at the neckline. Is the rib narrow and loosely knitted? Flip the hem. Is there a cover stitch or a single needle line? Tug the pocket bag. Is it anchored with bar tacks? Rub the fabric lightly. Does it bloom into fuzz? These are not snob tests. They're durability signals. If you can spot them, you can predict the wash count. The impact lands on real people. When brands accept higher defect rates because refunds are cheap, factories eat chargebacks. Sewing lines push harder to cover losses. Inspectors are told to relax standards to ship on time. Quality becomes a negotiation downward, and the people closest to the needle pay first. Here's the kicker. Once you normalize disposable quality, you normalize disposable people and places. The shirt that unravels early was a decision chain, from fiber to stitch to label, tuned to make short life look like style. And what breaks at home was already breaking at source. Lie 3. The environmental mirage. The third lie wears a green tag. It says recycled, conscious, carbon neutral. It leans on soft colors and leafy fonts, but follow the thread and the picture shifts. The closet is now an oil field, the river a ledger line, and circular often means somewhere else will deal with it. Start with polyester. It's plastic. Oil turned into filament, spun into yarn, knitted into the shirt that feels airy because the knit is thin. Polyester surged because it's cheap, predictable, and fast. It holds color well and dries quickly until it sheds. Every cut on the factory floor, everywhere at home, every wash releases microfibers, tiny threads that drift into air and wastewater. Treatment plants catch some, not most. They slide into rivers and seas, settle in sediments, move up food chains, and float in our air. Even natural fibers aren't innocent when they're coated with finishes and dyes that stick around. The dust in your laundry room, some of it is clothing you'll never see again. Meanwhile, dye houses keep their own clock. When deadlines bite, fixation time's short, shade checks rush, and the chemistry leaves with the water. Dyeing and finishing are huge slices of fashion's footprint, heat-hungry, chemical-heavy, and impatient. Downstream, communities shoulder the cleanup. When brands promise less water, they rarely show the pipe. A lab test can report lower impact per garment, but the river measures total volume. Here, where the Mirage doubles itself, recycled polyester. It sounds like fabric turned into fabric. Often it is. Much of it is bottle to fiber. PET bottles diverted from being bottles again, melted and extruded into filament. Yes, it avoids virgin oil. No, it doesn't make the fiber magically recyclable next time. Once plastic becomes a t-shirt blended with cotton or spandex, it's almost impossible to turn back into equal quality yarn. We call it recycling. Mechanically, it's usually downcycling with a dead end. The marketing leans hard on take-back bins. Drop your clothes, we'll recycle. But volumes overwhelm sorters. Mixed fibers jam the process. Zippers, prints, elastics, all the trims that make a garment fun make it hard to disassemble. What actually happens is triage. A fraction of wearable items get resold locally. More are baled and exported. The rest, too damaged or too low quality, are landfilled or incinerated. If a bale is heavy on flimsy blends, sellers down the line eat the loss. When margins collapse, clothes spill into open dumps and burn pits. The fire you saw in the opening is what the Mirage conceals. Even secondhand saves it has limits. Resale works best when the original is durable. Flood a market with disposable tees and polyester mini dresses, and you don't extend life. You displace local makers and swamp traders with waste they must pay to move. When a port city receives containers of mixed quality garments, the winners get worn. The losers unravel into beaches lined with fabric, fibers braided into seaweed, ash in the wind from burn piles that never cool. Microfibers don't wait for washing machines. Abrasion during wear sheds them into the air. Open a package, pull a garment over your head, and threads lift. It's small, invisible, and relentless. Studies now find microfibers in deep ocean trenches and in human lungs. The finishes that made your hoodie anti-odor or wrinkle-free can hitchhike on those fibers. The industry rarely advertises that part. Carbon neutral? Look close and you'll find offsets, not cuts. A brand buys credits for trees somewhere, then speeds up new product drops here. The claim may be technically correct on a spreadsheet, but physics still counts the heat used to spin, dye, and ship. If volume rises, total emissions usually rise, even if the gram per garment number falls. Net can hide a lot of gross. Traceability apps, useful when they show the factory, the mill, the dye house, the farm, and the waste stream. Too often they stop at the cut-and-sew stage and skip the dirtiest chapters. QR codes with missing acts are theater, not transparency. If the map doesn't show where wastewater went, what chemicals were used, how fiber was spun, and where unsold stock lands, it's a brochure. Meanwhile, promises of circular collections are tiny islands in a sea of fast throughput. 100 conscious SKUs perched on a site with 10,000 new listings this week is a rounding error dressed up for press. The flood keeps rising while we admire a lifeboat. Here's a human beat. A dye house manager stands by a vat at 2 in the morning. The order must ship by noon. Proper fixation needs more time, but the client has already penalized late deliveries twice this quarter. He turns the valve early, cools, rinses, hopes. The garment passes a passable test. The river absorbs what the clock didn't allow. Polyester's convenience doesn't make it evil. Cotton's natural origin doesn't make it pure. The real line is speed and scale. When we produce and discard at this clip, every small improvement drowns in volume. If the fixes were working, we'd see cleaner water at known dye hubs, fewer bales crossing oceans, and smaller piles at landfills. We don't, because the model keeps pumping. To see the impact, we can't stop at claims. We have to follow one shirt's life and meet the people carrying its weight.